So today I have on the podcast Victoria McKenzie. Um, there's from the moment that I met you, I knew you were really strong couple with your husband, right? I know that you told me, I think a few months or the year before you moved to Sarasota or Florida that you were going to come down here.
Yeah.
You like came down, we're like, we love it. We're gonna move from, Pennsylvania. I'm like, what? And that, it happened, and obviously now you're living here. But you're a realtor, you're a real estate investor, a mom. You're currently pregnant, which I don't know how you do all these things, while being pregnant. And just really just like taking down the world as you see it and kind of working towards your vision and your goals. And so I wanted to get a little bit of insight on how you have done this like from the get-go. I know you had a business as well. I don't know if you guys still have it up in Pennsylvania. But how this got started, maybe like where that vision started to unravel and how you guys do crazy things like moving from, across the state, like from just one moment to another.
I know. Well, thank you. I know. Well, I knew the moment that I met you that you were just like a total powerhouse. And I love that you're way more of an integrator than I am, hence why you have the podcast and I do not. Right. So, like, you are such an integrator, you're an action taker, like, you're another strong female. And I think that we get misunderstood a lot of times, like strong, dominant alpha female. I can even remember in high school, like people would say, like, "Oh, like Vic has a black heart." You know what I mean? And
Oh
that just
Lord.
doesn't even remotely describe me. But I think that alpha, which that's a term, honestly, that I've just learned probably over the last 2 to 3 years, is like masculine and feminine energy. So, anyways, I knew that we would connect immediately, like strong women who are strong and forward, but are also soft and very caring. So I appreciate you inviting me on here. I mean, I've been this way forever, I guess. All the way back to the beginning, I was raised by a single mom and I'm an only child. So you don't really get much of a choice but to be strong.
Right.
And then in high school, thankfully, I did very well academically. I went on to a private college and earned a 4 year degree in industrial engineering. Thought I was going to be one of those powerhouse women, like wearing a suit, working in the corner office, all that kind of stuff. And then, things change. And I almost think it's that femininity, it's that natural instinct. Like, we are both God fearing women. And I truly believe that we are designed to have a partner and to have a family. And I think those traits started to come out. And so my husband and I have known each other since we were 16.
Oh
He,
wow.
I was the bookworm. He was like the kid who brought beer to school. Okay.
That's funny.
Um, yes, like Matt McKenzie was the bad boy, riding dirt bikes, jumping off of bridges. We come from a very small town. And so I still laugh to this day. If anyone would tell me, like, you're going to marry Matt McKenzie and have all these babies, I'd be like, you're crazy. But again, people change, right? So I went off to New York. I came back. He ended up getting a really good job, and I showed up, and he had his good job. He had his nice truck, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he has his stuff together. So we ended up, we started dating while I was still in my senior year of college, and that was like the big turning point. Like, I'm in New York. I plan to stay there, go to Boston. I reconnected with Matt. My grandmother ended up getting cancer, and then just all of these things bringing me back to Pennsylvania. So I
Wow.
came back. I worked as an executive in logistics for Target.
Hmm.
And so I was doing that. I was working like 50, 60 hours a week. Matt was working 50, 60 hours a week. And then, what was it, December of 2015, I quit my job and we bought our first house 2 weeks later. And
Wow.
that was like the journey, the entrepreneurial journey started then. Like, quit my corporate job, no health care, no savings, no 401k. And we bought a house that looked like it was probably out of like a murder scene in a horror movie. We were like, okay, we're going to figure this out. So,
But you bought it with the intention to renovate it and sell it again, right? From my understanding, or?
we didn't. We like didn't understand. We had no idea what house hacking was. We knew nothing about real estate. I mean, I can still remember we went on a walk. There's like a local park, and that's what Matt is very outdoorsy. So like we would go on walks through the woods all the time. And I'm like, we need $7,000 to buy the house. And I'm like, I have like 4,000. Like, how much do you have? You know what I mean? And I can remember literally needing $7,000 to buy this house. And we made it happen. And then he's just handy by trade, I guess. My father-in-law is very handy. And so we just started. We didn't have a functioning kitchen, I don't know, for 6 months. I had a refrigerator in my garage. I had a crock pot and a microwave, a collapsible table in the dining room, and I did dishes in the basement wash tub.
Oh my God.
So like, yeah, we were so like broke that we packed our lunches. So I would go down on Sundays. I would literally get a laundry basket. So I had to go to the garage in the basement, get the food out of the fridge, and then carry the laundry basket upstairs with the food to pack lunches on Sunday. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we've just always been, we just go for it and know that in the end it'll work out.
Mm. I love that. And I think that having a really strong partner that helps you in all the, your visions and your dreams are obviously um, crucial to making it happen. And so kudos to you and your husband really for just kind of making it work one way or the other. But that's kind of the beginning of the story. What started initiating like all the other things that you guys have done in real estate? So just so people can know kind of where you guys are at now.
Yeah, so it all started with that house. We figured out that we could renovate it. Well, we did renovate it. And then at the time, so this is so funny because I'm about to have a baby again. We like to make a lot of really big life decisions at the same time. So we finished renovations on the house, and at the time it was the two of us. I just had our first child. She was literally 6 weeks old. We had a dog. And not that our house was that small, but it was like 1,000 square foot ranch. And we just wanted like more space. We kind of felt like, okay, it's time to upgrade. And so we decided to sell the property. And at that time, I didn't have my real estate license. So we used the woman that we purchased the home from. And I can just remember, so we had a fall through. The contract fell through. We had accepted an offer and gone through inspections, did negotiations. We packed up our whole entire house. At the time, we were sleeping on a mattress in our bedroom, like living out of a couple suitcases because we were ready to close. And 7 days before closing, the buyers walked away.
Oh, wow.
And again, I had a 6-week-old baby.
Yeah.
So I can remember that like very vividly. And then thankfully got a second contract. There were some hiccups there. And I just remember going through the motions, and I was like, why wasn't their loan approved? Like, why did we not know like that these things were going on? And I started to question all these things. And I'm like, I could have done a better job than this woman that I'm compensating. And then I remember, she was kind of a family friend. And I remember her saying, like, oh, we're only going to charge you like 2% or 4% or something of that nature. Right. And then I get to the closing table and it was like 5 or 6. I'm just thinking to myself, why wasn't this explained to me? Why did I have to go through all of this? Like, why was I never kept in the loop? And then I discovered that for 63 hours and $350, I could get my real estate license. And again, I had a little baby. I didn't want to go back to corporate America. Thankfully, Matt had a good job at the time where he was able to carry our family for a while. And that was sort of just took things and skyrocketed. Whenever I said I'm getting my real estate license, even before Matt and I, whenever we were first starting to date, neither of us owned a home. But he was looking at houses before we started dating. He was always very interested in like rental properties. I instantly shut that down because I'm like, I don't want tenants. This is crazy. Like, who does that? Who owns rental properties? I'm like, that is so weird. Who does that? So
And here we
it
are.
just, so yeah, like no one teaches you this stuff. So anyways, I got my real estate license in January of 2018. I went into it full time. I didn't do it part time. I did 2 open houses every single Sunday for over a year. I didn't make a single dollar for 6 months. And then my 6 months, so from like July to December of 2018, I closed about 25 transactions and made almost $100,000.
Wow.
So at that point, it was just sort of like game over, So that coupled with the quote house hacking, where we realized we made like a $64,000 tax-free payday. Those 2 things, it just became a no-brainer for us to move into real estate full time.
100%. And what started getting you guys really into gear? Because I believe you owned, I don't know if you still do, but like a landscaping business as well. How did you guys do all these things? Like how how did you manage that? And then I think Matt also, believe he became a general contractor as well. You can kind of go more into the details, but
Yeah. Yeah. So we started to learn that you don't have to follow the path that society talks about. That was it, right? And so I had already left corporate America, and the next step was for Matt to get out of it. And so the landscaping business was our plan for him to get out of corporate America. So that first house, before we sold it, again, same thing, like I can envision it. I'm sitting in the living room on the couch, and I was trying to figure out how to make a website. So I went on Wix.com because it was free. And that whole summer, I was making an About Us page and all of this other stuff. And then we knew nothing about business. And so I found out about the SBA. And in Pittsburgh, the University of Pitt is actually like a branch or whatever it is of the SBA. So they offer a ton of in-person classes. So we started taking SBA classes at the University of Pittsburgh, and that's how we learned to form an LLC, and that we had to get a corporate bank account and all of this other type of stuff.
right.
So we just totally had to figure it out on our own. And then for about a year and a half, Matt worked in the mill as an electrician. He got a steady night shift. So he was working 6 p to 6 a, and then he came home and landscaped all day and then went back for 6 p to 6 a. And we did that for about a year and a half.
Wow. Talk about
Yeah.
hard work. Wow. And you were like raising your kids and helping him obviously throughout the whole process.
Yeah. So at that point in time, we had our daughter, and then I got pregnant with our son, and I was still selling real estate. Like I never stopped selling real estate. So we had my daughter, I was pregnant, I was selling real estate. He was working at the mill, he was landscaping. I was doing quotes for him, writing receipts. We were just laughing the other day. He would call me and be like, I need 6 tons of 2B stone delivered to this address. Like, I need mulch from here. I need you to call Lampus. And I'm like, selling houses. So it was super chaotic for about a year and a half to 2 years. And now we're in our second home. So we house hacked the first one. Our second home we bought was a foreclosure. And so we knew we were going to fix that one up as well, because at this point we're like addicted to house hacking. I mean, there's nothing else that you can get a tax-free payday from of that nature, except, as we know now, like burring out of a property that you own. So we became super addicted to that. And I can remember it was like summer of 2019. I was pregnant with my son. We were doing all this chaotic stuff, and we were trying to decide, are we going to move again, or are we going to make this house work for the next like 3 to 5 years? Keep running our businesses, maybe pay off this house. We bought it for like 120 grand. Save up money to buy some land. And my husband, again, he's the one addicted to real estate. Like, I'm not even addicted to real estate. Like, he is the one addicted to real estate and has been before we even met. So he doesn't even need MLS. Like, you see him on his phone on Zillow, like, I don't know, probably 2 hours a day. And so I kept telling him, you have to stop looking at houses. Like, we're done. Like, I am 7 months pregnant. We are staying in this house. And then fast forward, we're sitting at dinner, we're out to eat, and I had another realtor that I had befriended. He lived in an area that was very desirable to us. It was more of a country setting. Everyone out there has acreage. It's a very small town. And my father-in-law is actually a teacher in the school district. So that was sort of like the end goal. Like, if we could live there, we would move. I told him to stop looking at Zillow. We're sitting at dinner, and the agent's name's Dave Nedley. He sends me this listing, and I'm like, crap. Like, this is it.
I love it. Yeah.
Like, this is the house. And so we're sitting there. We're at a high top table. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I'm like, did you see the house on Lehman Road? He's like, no, you told me to stop looking at houses. I'm like, okay, I'm going to send it to you. And so I send it to him. We go and look at it, and it's this just gorgeous renovated farmhouse. It was built in like the early 1900s. It was fully renovated by the Amish, like all custom. There was still some work to be done, which for us, like, there always has to be equity, right, in something that we buy. The property was on almost 15 acres. It had a massive pool barn. It had an in-ground swimming pool. Like, it was the dream. Like, we walked in and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is the house. And I've never loved a house. So again, 7 months pregnant, we have a house to sell. We're still running 2 businesses. We have a 1-year-old daughter. And I'm like, okay, how do we make this work? So now I make an offer, multiple offer situation, all this stuff, and we end up getting it. And it was chaos. So we sold our house. We moved into Lehman Road, the farm property, and I literally had my son 30 days later. Like, we didn't even unpack boxes.
Oh Lord, craziness. It sounds like that you're gonna end up moving. And how many months pregnant are you right now?
Oh no, yeah, literally. I told my husband, we're getting our house here in Sarasota. I'm doing a pre-inspection next week so we can get ready to list it. I'm not kidding. It's insanity.
Always one pregnant, huh?
I know. I should have known. I should have known. And now, like, I was just in the bathroom and I'm like, I wonder where I'm gonna bring this baby home to.
Yeah, because you always move. It's so funny. And so what has all these things, like being a business owner? I don't know if you still own that business. Your husband obviously with general contracting, all these different things. What have you learned about business that also has helped you, as a person, or, just in your development, your personal development?
For sure, yeah. So, like, the business side of it, so we ended up, we haven't fully dissolved that landscaping company, but this is kind of funny. So people who are considering getting into entrepreneurial journeys, whatever that may look like, self-employment, just starting. We started that company. It was an S corp because we were told to form it like that because of taxes and everything. So we had this one entity that we started cutting grass in. So that was the initial plan, grass cutting. Then we started landscaping. Then my husband was buying heavy machinery, excavators, skid steers. So then he was doing boulder walls. He was doing like $50,000 projects. Same entity, same type of insurance. Then we decided to start flipping houses in that same entity. Then we decided to start buying rental properties in that same entity. Then I found out about self-employment tax as a real estate agent. It was like, oh my gosh, I need to pay myself through an entity. So let's now funnel my real estate commission into that same entity. So that was a business lesson learned. Again, no one teaches you these things. So it wasn't until about 2020, whenever we started joining networking groups, joining masterminds, flying to different events throughout the country, networking with people in Sub 2, in Apex, even going to like local meetups in Pittsburgh, that your eyes get opened to these things that are extremely necessary. So that's sort of like the logistical side of it. That side I really struggled with because no one taught me, and I truly had to seek that information. So that is definitely something that's really important. Like, and we all know, right? Like, get around people who are better than you, smarter than you, and more successful than you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really important. And on the flip side of that, mindset, right? And I think I've always been a relatively positive person. So I'm grateful for that. It's not that I don't struggle, but just started filling my cup with positivity and information. Same thing. Whenever we moved into that house, I can remember I had a Bluetooth speaker in the kitchen. And whenever I would be like cleaning the house or doing dishes or cooking dinner, I would put on Bigger Pockets. And I would like fuel my mind with the possibility of what real estate could do for myself and my family. And so I think that's really, really important. And I'm also big into reading. So I really love like self-help books. I love Ed Milet. I listen to podcasts all the time. And you can burn yourself out for sure. But I think that is almost a non-negotiable. And that's really where you have to start, is you have to start by believing in yourself. Otherwise, you're going to hit one roadblock and you're going to be over it. I mean, I spent my birthday last year at the police station filing a restraining order against a tenant's boyfriend. So, I'm sitting there with my husband and my 2 kids in the police station on, I guess, my 31st birthday. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why am I here? Why am I dealing with this? Like, what is the point? Right. And just like you talked about in the beginning, like, what is our vision? What is our purpose? All of that. You have to be very clear on that so that you can get through the evictions and not having money in your bank account and a contractor stealing $25,000 from you, a tenant trashing your house, all of those things. You have to go back to your why and you have to have your mindset right.
Amazing. And now you're educating other real estate agents about real estate investing, or what particularly do you go into with them?
Yeah, so I developed a 5-week course specifically for licensed real estate agents on how to change their future using real estate investing. So for me, I've been licensed, like I said, the beginning of 18, so going on like almost 5 or 6 years now. And I feel like there's such a lack of knowledge about real estate investing, right? So realtors are out there, they're pounding the pavement, they're calling expireds, they're calling FSBOs, they're calling their friends and their families to get listings, they're doing open houses to gain buyer clients, they're paying an ungodly amount of money for Zillow leads, right? They're working so hard for this business, which you have to do and which I respect. But what are you doing with your commission and with your income to secure your future?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that income shouldn't just be used to pay your bills or go on a nice vacation or, buy a Gucci bag or whatever it is, because you're going to continuously work for that money over and over and over and over again, unless you start being smarter about what you do with it.
Right. 100%. And so this educates real estate agents specifically. That's kind of like what you've niched down on, right? So that they understand how to invest for themselves.
Correct. Because for me, I have a lot of, friends or people on Facebook and Instagram reach out to me, the whole like, I'd love to pick your brain. I don't know how you and Matt do what you do. Like, how did you get started? And as much as I want to answer those questions, and sometimes I do, or I'll send a voice memo or I'll tell them where to start, I specifically wanted to target real estate agents because they have a base knowledge, right?
Right.
And it just really increases their chances of catching on and understanding. Because to be completely honest, the way that I designed this 5-week program was to cram a lot of information into bite-sized pieces. And I've taught it multiple times now. And honestly, even teaching it to new and experienced agents, they're still kind of confused, right? Because real estate investing, it's a lot. And so for me, teaching the general public is just not something that I'm very interested in at this time.
No, it's good. It's good that you niched it down to an avatar, right? Like, this is my actual target client, you know?
Yeah.
So
they have access, you know, they have access to the MLS, can get into properties and everything of that nature. So yeah, that's
sure.
my marketing.
What do you think is like that one switch that most real estate agents don't think about investing, right? Because there are some that they'll flip, and like I talked to a few, and they'll flip and also like list their own thing, but they don't really get into the buy and hold, or like you also do short-term rentals, from so different things like that. So where do you think is like that switch that's missing, from agent where it's active income to an investor?
So I teach them about buy, borrow, and die, right? So actually setting up a legacy and using that BRRRR strategy to get tax-free money in the long term, and what you can do with that money and how you can reinvest it to buy more properties, how you can secure these properties and pass them on for generations, how people are so worried about interest rates and all of these other things. And with long-term investments, what does it matter? Someone else is paying your interest rate. You just secured an asset for free. And so whenever I really start breaking down the numbers and like a long-term trajectory of like 5, 10, 20 years and what that looks like, it's so great. You see that switch. Like, you phrased it perfectly. You see that switch and they're like, oh my gosh, Victoria, like, oh my gosh. And that's whenever, and I sign homework every week. And so they come back and they're like, I found this property, I'm going to go walk it. Hey, I found this property. Can you help me analyze this deal? And like, that's the stuff that really excites me. And I told them, the thing is, and we have no intentions of going huge. We have investor friends, just like, 800 units, 2,000 units. That's not our trajectory or our game plan. But even these realtors that I'm teaching, I'm like, buy 5 houses and see how it changes the rest of your life.
Amazing. How many, what is your vision? What are you guys looking to attain as far as like unit count, or, I don't know if there's like a passive income amount?
Yeah. So our goal has always been $35,000 of net passive income every month from properties.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so right now I self-manage, right? So then you have to factor in like all of that into the equation. And so we bought 2 properties back in like 2020. We didn't really know what we were doing, and they weren't in the right area. We just thought that they were a deal. So then we ended up liquidating all of those. And then in 2022, we purchased 10 units, and we primarily used the BRRRR method with all of them. So that's whenever we were adding value to it. We were cash out refining. Before interest rates went really high, we actually got about $30,000 in equity out of a couple of them, and we're still able to cash flow. Obviously things have changed.
Right.
We have those units right now. We have 2 Airbnbs. So I have one Airbnb in Deep Creek, Maryland. It's always been a vacation destination. In the wintertime, there's skiing. In the summertime, there's the lake, and it grosses about $125,000 a year. But our expenses are about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. So that property is a lot to maintain. So that was, again, something that we're learning. I didn't know that my propane bill would be $700 a month in the winter, right? I didn't know that I should collect a deposit. And the very first guest that we had threw up all over our walls, all over our couch, right? So all of these things that you just have to move forward and learn through. but yeah, our goal, that's the income goal. We now at this point, this is really all I want to manage on my own. So from this point forward, everything that we analyze with a property management fee
Yeah,
attached to it.
100%. It's a lot. It's a lot for one person. And how do you manage all these things virtually? Because you don't live there. So how do you do that?
Yeah, yeah. So it's really funny because, like you said, so I guess jumping back really quick, that farmhouse, which was the dream and everything of that nature. Trust me, whenever people, it was the farmhouse, the wraparound porch with like the rocking chairs and everything like that.
I saw it. It was
And
beautiful.
yeah, and people are like, why are you selling this house? And again, we just know that there's a bigger calling and that there's a next step in life. So we ended up selling that house in November of 21. We saw you during the pandemic. So again, we were working like crazy people. So we hadn't gone on vacation in 5 years. So when the world shut down, we were like, let's go on vacation. And so we packed up our 2 kids and came down here, and we drove the entire west coast of Florida. And we were like, let's move to Florida. Like, where are we going to find a spot? And so we started working on that plan like the summer of 2021, and we ended up selling our house in November of 2021. And like 4 days after we sold our house, my mom ended up passing away super unexpectedly. So
That's crazy.
that was like really hard. So I sold my house. We moved into one of our rentals. My mom passed away. It was just like a really, really bad point in time. I had no idea what we were doing, where we were going. And so we finally got a house down here in Florida. And my point being, every time I meet people down here, they're like, oh, why'd you come to Florida? What brings you to Florida? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. We have no jobs here. We do nothing here. We're just living in Florida. And so we're trying it out, seeing how it goes. But as far as managing everything, we it's been a struggle, right? It's been an adjustment. My husband, honestly, he still goes back to Pennsylvania every like 6 to 8 weeks. We have been able to decrease that more recently, thankfully, because we're decreasing our flips. But I'm super fortunate that I have a realtor friend who's also in my brokerage up north, that she manages the face-to-face with all of our tenants. So she shows all of my properties, she arranges all of the photography for the properties, places the lock boxes, puts them on Zillow for me. I still do all of like the screening process and the leases. As far as like boots on the ground,
Right.
she does that for us. So that's immensely helpful. Our local Airbnb up there in Pittsburgh, I have a woman that's known me since I was like 5. She cleans our Airbnb. She supplies everything for it. So that's all good. And then our Airbnb, the vacation one, like tip number 4, I guess, of this podcast is if you have an Airbnb remotely, like your cleaner is a godsend. Like you cannot function without a top-notch cleaning crew. So I'm just very, very, very fortunate that we have an amazing team there to take care of that property.
How did you find them?
Facebook. So
Oh,
I am really big on using like community pages to find resources, because Google, you can read reviews and look at different stars and ratings and everything, but everyone's super open on Facebook, right? So I go to the community pages where I'm trying to find a cleaner or a contractor or something of that nature, and I ask the community members who they recommend.
nice. And so they really help you out with stalking and if there's some kind of an issue, aside from
Correct.
just cleaning.
Correct. Yep. And so I order all of our supplies through Amazon. They get shipped to her house. She restocks all of them for me. If there's an issue with the guest, like something is broken or whatever, she sends me photos, and then I can submit them on Airbnb. And so it's definitely, we've owned that now for about a year and a half. And I think we're finally like figuring it out. Same thing. I didn't know how to price it because I'm not a super tech integrator, and there's these platforms that price it for you and all this other stuff. And so I just comped it, like I comp properties, and I ended up like not capitalizing as much as we could have, especially those first 6 months. And so now, I only allow one pet. I require security deposits. Everyone has to be over the age of 24. Like, I require all these additional things. But we just had to learn.
Right. That live and you learn. That's how it goes. Well, you kept going, so that's great. And you guys are still flipping right now.
We are, yeah. So we have the long-term rentals, we have the short-term rentals. We just closed on a Pittsburgh flip, a resale. I don't know, probably 2 weeks ago. That was the last one that we had up in Pennsylvania, and it's just really hard, especially for us. Like, I know a lot of people do it remotely, but good, bad, or indifferent, like we hold ourselves to a very high standard when it comes to construction because my husband is a contractor. And so that one was completely hands off, which is great, right? Because then all of that profit truly is profit. Like, it wasn't actually, payroll to my husband or to our company. He had nothing to do with it. But whenever he got up there, like, the shed really needed torn down. Like, our contractor never even brought that up. The landscaping was never done, so it looked kind of shanty. I would have replaced the front door. It was all beat up, right? And it just wasn't the same quality that we would have been satisfied with. And I honestly had a harder time selling it. I mean, it sat on the market for like 35 days when it should have been gone in 7 to 14 as far as the market trends up there. So we're kind of backing away from that unless we can somehow get our eyes on it more often. But we're super excited because we just got our first Florida flip under contract. So,
Nice.
yeah, this market, I hate this market.
I was like,
Oh,
how are you flipping in this market? Like, what tips would you give? Because it is a harder market to flip in.
for sure. So if you're looking to be in like a very competitive market, especially like Sarasota, and I'm learning, you're obviously further south, but Sarasota isn't the same as Bradenton, and it's not the same as Venice. Like, we landed in the heart of demand pretty much. And even though our market trends here, like, our inventory has increased, obviously with interest rate, buyer pool has kind of decreased a little bit, but that doesn't mean when there's a deal, people aren't fighting for it hand over fist. So for me, even the wholesale deals, I've been working with Florida wholesalers since, I don't know, 2020, 2021. And the way they analyze their properties, they want to sell them to me at like an 85% ARV. And I'm like, this doesn't even work after construction and holding costs and everything. And they assume over your 6 month period, it'll appreciate. And I don't run on that basis. Like, I run my numbers very conservatively. And thankfully that's allowed us to never get ourselves in hot water. But that's what's made it hard for me to buy here because I
Right.
buy very conservatively. So super excited. The only reason we got this one is honestly because I built some rapport with the listing agent. And we got a hedge fund because he said he'd rather work with us. So we got it at
Nice.
about $15,000 less than what the hedge fund offered because we're local.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's in Sarasota.
Yep.
Nice. So it's like, so you guys are not afraid of flipping, I guess, in an environment, I guess the environment that we're in.
No, I mean, like I said, I've seen it enough here. So I am licensed in Florida as well. So I sell here in Florida, and I've seen the market and everything of that nature. Um, so was I a little nervous? Yeah. Same thing, right? 5-day contingency period. I'm like, you sure you want it? Are you sure you want it? I'm like, tell my husband, I'm like, are you excited? Because I'm nervous, right? We've never lost. I don't want this to be the first, right?
Right.
So there's definitely way more risk in this one, but is all you can do is live and learn, right? I want to go through the process because Florida is so different here. I want to go through the process of like dealing with the 4-point inspection, I'm using hard money on it, right? So I had to find my hard money lender and get him on board with doing a Florida flip. My wind mitigation, my permits, like all of that is completely different for us. So I really just wanted to go through the process.
Right. And learn how it is down here. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Kudos to you. A lot of people, they like you get stuck in one thing and you don't try something new. So good for you. And so what does the future look like for you and Matt? Well, I know you're gonna have are you having a boy or a girl?
A boy. So we'll have one girl and two boys.
So cute. And
Yeah.
and your kids are beautiful. But I just want to see kind of like what does the next kind of few years look like for you guys, if you guys have some kind of a vision that you guys are working towards.
Yeah. So the vision is to really dial down on like integration systems, cash flow, and like really understand that part of our business. Because, like I said, we bought 10 units and just started renovating them and burring them. And like now I'm trying to, right, they're all fully occupied, which was like my second goal. And good, bad, or indifferent, right? We're all wired differently. I just take action and then I have to go backwards and say, okay, what actually happened? What does that look like on paper? How are we going to keep these properties in the future and how are we going to operate them? So right now I'm really focusing on organization and systems and integration as opposed to like acquisitions and continuing to build. So
Right.
that's my focus right now. And then from a personal standpoint, we miss our land. So we're currently either looking for like recreational property that we can at least like get out of here and enjoy, or looking to move somewhere into the country. But so is the land.
Okay, you're back, I think. Victoria, you're
I'm
back.
here.
Okay. I think there was some kind of internet, but it's okay. We'll just edit that out.
Perfect. So yeah, so we're just we're trying to get back to having some land and getting our kids outside. That's really important to us. But we can't shake the fact that Sarasota has so much opportunity. So we've already started looking into like different business ventures and things of that nature. So that's really hard for us to just completely walk away from that. But we also know that God has a plan for us. So wherever that leads, that's where it leads.
What kind of business ventures have you guys thought of, or you guys may want to do in Sarasota?
Yeah, so we're primarily talking about sort of like handyman and home watch services.
Oh
So
yeah.
again, my husband is a contractor by trade, but we're trying to design a life that is conducive to what we want. And him doing a lot of physical work is not conducive to that. It's not what we're looking for in this phase of our life. Again, he broke his back riding a dirt bike. He's been in multiple car accidents. Like again, he's 33 and he's probably like has the body of a 6-year-old. So doing things that aren't as physical, but have a demand here in Sarasota. And so that's primarily what we're looking into. We've been looking into some other passive ventures such as like laundromats and things of that nature. But then that's where we see the signs to just stay where we're at, right? Like follow the path, do what you know, like, and trust. And is there really a need to start searching for other things? So, yeah, that's real estate is our whole being. And I think it'll always be that way. So we stay very close to things that coincide with real estate.
Makes sense. 100%. And the other thing I wanted to ask is how do you manage all this with being a mom, a wife, in real estate? Like, there's so many things, like you're juggling so many different priorities. So, do you have any tips on like what maybe could help someone else?
My tips. So I don't know. I think my saying for the last year has been to give yourself grace, because it's so easy, especially once you get into the space and you are filling your mind with motivation and self-help books and podcasts, and you're seeing people in your space who are very successful, and I think it becomes very easy to compare, right? But at
Right.
the end of the day, we truly never know what's going on behind those walls and what's going on behind social media and what's going on behind the podcast. And so I think we all just need to reflect inward and know that you're doing your best, and what your best is enough. And honestly, that's how I practiced. I mean, yesterday I spent 12 hours on real estate appointments, back to back to back. I was hungry, I was tired, I was hot. My husband had the kids. I got home and he was like, "Hey, I have to go to Pennsylvania." I'm like, I didn't even get to change my clothes yet. I'm pregnant. I start crying. I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. My son has a fever. And I gave myself like a half an hour to like calm down. I snuggled up with my kids. I went to breakfast with my son today. I made him a doctor's appointment. And then I kind of checked off like, what are my must do's today? And just realizing that not every day is going to be perfect. And I'm okay with that. And every day that I get is a blessing. And that's really how I function.
I love that. Yeah, it's giving yourself grace is probably something a lot of times we don't do when you're really trying to achieve and you're really in this achievement muscle, I guess, right? Well, I don't know about other people, but typically you're really hard on yourself, instead of giving yourself grace. So that's a good point. Um, and so I just wanted to see kind of where you're at in your journey. It looks like you guys are riding along the wave, and what's interesting to me is I couldn't imagine like about to like having a 6-week old and like all the little stories you told us and like, okay, I'm pregnant again and now, and all the things dealing with business and all the real estate things that you were doing or are still doing at this point, so kudos to you because that just shows like how resilient and you are as a person because I mean I couldn't imagine honestly. um
Thank
I don't know how you did it, but here we are. And
you.
another thing I wanted to mention is, are you considering like buying and holding also in Florida? Or I know a lot of the things are, I think in Pennsylvania and, like the vacation, but are you also thinking about Florida?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. So we were heavily looking into vacation rentals here, right? Like I'm 10 minutes to Siesta Key. Obviously, you look at those numbers, they're super desirable. But again, I'm very conservative when it comes to real estate investing, because this is our future. This is our long term. We have a family. I mean, we're fully self-employed. Like we have nothing to fall back on. I don't ever want to be the one to make the wrong decision that like really causes turmoil in our lives from a financial perspective. So we were looking for a long time. We honestly put a couple properties under contract. We've lost about $30,000 in earnest money this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. So that's not fun. That's nothing anyone wants to talk about. But from the grand scheme of things, again, those were lessons learned, because we got excited. I ran the numbers. We put it under contract. There's all this pressure in the market, right, that you have to make these competitive offers. And then we get into it. We're through due diligence. Now I'm reevaluating. Now I'm learning something else. Now I'm really realizing AirDNA and all the data online is past trends. How do you look at future trends for vacation rentals in the economy, right? What happens whenever you see that these numbers have gone up 50%, 75%, 110%, and that's what you're basing your rental income off of? What happens when they go back to normal? So, all of these things, I'd rather make a 10, 20, $30,000 mistake than a 200, a 300, a $500,000 mistake. And those are the numbers here in Florida. And for me, I buy properties for like 50 grand, 100 grand. I'm net cash flowing, $400, $500 a month. I have a little Airbnb that I bought for like $80,000. It brings in almost $2,000 a month. So again, bringing myself back to, if it's not broken, if it works, if you know it, you like it, you trust it, why do you need to go elsewhere? Right. And it just about, people do that in relationships. Like you hit a rock or a hard place or a struggle, or it's not working right now. And so you go to try to find something else. Something else isn't always better. So for long term, flipping, I'm okay. Flipping's temporary. You can always get yourself out of it. You can figure it out. But long term, I think we'll kind of stay in our niche.
Makes sense. I mean, $50,000 property is, I don't know where you can find that in Florida. I don't think it's really doable.
And the thing is, right, like obviously you guys, the higher price point, you get higher rents here. My house right now, I could keep it and rent it out for like $3,500 a month. I don't even know that type of house that I could never. There's nothing in my market in Pennsylvania that I could ever rent for $3,500 a month. But I'm okay with that, So yeah, so Florida long term, I don't think it's my jam.
Yeah, that's fine though. I mean, at least you know what you want, what you don't want, what you're not okay with. And also the insurance in Florida, I can just say from my own. Yeah, it's just going higher by the year. So
and that's a total, like, that's one of those other factors that like you have no control over, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, the community groups, I like to watch them for knowledge. In the moms group, I mean, knock on wood, thank God, our insurance hasn't gone up exponentially in the last year. But there's people saying they went from 2,000 to 7,000, from 3,000 to 5,000. Like, we know, I mean, whenever you're analyzing a deal to cash flow, like, I don't have that much cash flow. I don't have that much to eat, that insurance cost plus, tax increase and everything like that.
Right. Yeah, taxes and insurance is going to go up in Florida. No matter what, I mean, it is what it is. So definitely, I'm curious what Pennsylvania insurance is for normal home.
Want to know?
Yeah, I'm curious.
So for like a regular house, like if I just sold it to an owner occupied, say 1,500, 2,000 square feet, you're between like $700 and $1,000 a year. Yeah. My investment properties, like I have a single family investment property. I think it's like $500 a year. I have a duplex for $780 a year. I have a triplex for $1,200 a year.
That's crazy. That's so cheap.
Oh yeah, I already had our triplex. The one fridge water line burst while we weren't there. Again, like, this is all really stuff. It did like $30,000 in damage. But again, that was all covered. So yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, when I used to work in insurance, and everybody that would move down here is like, insurance is so high here, and that was like years ago, so I can't even imagine now.
Yeah, so on average, the state of Florida, the average homeowner's policy is $4,500 a year. The average.
Wow, crazy. Yeah, so it makes sense to keep it in Pennsylvania. I think your rentals. But anyways, Victoria, if anybody wanted to get in contact with you, maybe sell you a few flips in the Sarasota area, or if they're just looking to maybe sell you some in Pittsburgh, what's the best way to contact you? What's the best way to maybe look up your course if you're a real estate agent looking to get into real estate investing?
Yeah, for sure. So my primary domain is on Facebook right now. That's where I spend, most of my time. I do have a website for my course, but you can reach out to me through Facebook, and it's just my first and last name, Victoria McKenzie. And then our email is info@freedom-enterprises.com. So That's one of our main accounts, and we do everything through there. So if you need to get a hold of me via email, you're more than welcome to send me an email.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you, and really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.